McQuestion, talking about things that matter with people who care. Production of McQuestion is made possible in part by individual viewers. Supporters of the Foundation for Responsible Television. The Hatton W. Sumner's Foundation for the Study of Teaching and Self-Government. Hillcrest Foundation, founded by Mrs. W. W. Caruth. And Collin County Business Press, locally relevant, personally profitable.
Now, this is part 2 of a 2-part series on pharmaceutical companies and their relationships with the Food and Drug Administration. As I said on part 1, we were unsuccessful in getting representatives from the drug companies or FDA to appear. So I'll occasionally take their side in this dialogue, even though I didn't much in the first one. Joining us again are Dr. Charles Simone in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. Dr. Simone is a medical doctor, a medical oncologist, an immunologist, a radiation oncologist, and holds a Master of Medical Science. He's the founder of Simone Protective Cancer Center and the author of Cancer and Nutrition, a 10-point plan for prevention and cancer life extension. Dr. Simone, welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to start right where I was before. Can you hear me okay?
Very much.
Okay, great. And you were talking about the marketing dollars that have been spent by the Drug Administration. I'm holding up a book here by a lady named Marcia Angel. If you can get a shot of that, yes, you have a good shot of that. It's called The Truth About the Drug Companies, How They Deceive Us and What to Do About It. Marcia Angel was for, I don't know, 20 years or something, the head of the New England Journal of Medicine. And one of the things she talks about in this book is these marketing dollars that you're talking about. Now, I'm a capitalist guy. I don't know what's wrong with companies spending a lot of money on television advertising, just to take one form of that. Is that a problem with you, and if so, why?
Well, I think advertising on TV is not the right thing to do because it does influence the patient abnormally to come into the doctor and demand certain drugs that may or may not have any efficacy at all. Just because they're approved by the FDA doesn't mean that they work. And the point in fact is what we were talking about before, the statin drugs. Here we are, statin drugs, have they really extended life? When you look at the data, we're looking at about a 3% increase in lifespan overall. When you look at the data for aspirin, a simple 325 milligram aspirin taken once a day, they're almost equal in efficacy at reducing the risk of heart attack and reducing the risk of death from heart attack. When you look at the data of omega-3 fatty acids, fish oils, and aspirin and statin drugs, they're all equal. So,
and yet the price is significantly different. And as I tell me if I'm wrong about this, but there's almost no downside to taking a small aspirin or omega-3 acids. Whereas if you take drugs, isn't there some sort of a side effect issue on most of them?
There's death from a statin drug. There's a death recorded, and many times this death is related to a depletion of a CoQ10 that you're obligated to take when you're on a statin drug. That no one ever hears that. I bet a nickel many of the people in your audience are on a statin drug. There's also an increased risk of cancer from taking a statin drug. So there's no free ride with a statin drug, and as I mentioned before, the cholesterol normalcy has gone from 240 down to 200. And that's the case for cholesterol. We have identical analogies in diabetes, in sugar levels, and also blood pressure levels. The normal was at one point 20 years ago, and now gradually over the years has dropped. And this simply obligates people to prescribe more drugs to get down to the so-called new normal.
Okay, well, let me play devil's advocate with you there for a second. I could say that medical science is now showing me that while 240 cholesterol one time was thought to be okay, the fact is that I am really better off at 200 or less. It's not a question of just me trying to push this down to sell more goods and more drugs. What do you say to that?
That's not the case. All you have to do is tell the patient stop eating four-legged animals, shellfish, and reduce the incidence of dairy products. Stop smoking, stop drinking, do some exercise, and you get down to the same risk, if not better, without any harm at all.
Yeah, but now you're asking me to take personal responsibility, doctor, and that's way too much. I mean, I'd rather get Medicare or an insurance company to pay for my drugs than have to do that.
Well, most Americans do want to prefer taking a pill rather than prevention, put the onus on themselves squarely. And the problem is with that. We need to start paying for that. If you want to start staying obese, having a high cholesterol, continue smoking, and continue drinking, you need to start paying for those risks compared to a person like myself or even yourself, I don't know.
Well, you can't see me. I can see you, but you cannot see me. You don't know what I look like until you see this tape. What about that?
Well, I saw some of the videos on the
Oh, okay,
web.
okay. All right, I'll come back to you in a minute. Let me introduce Jonathan Emord, who's here in the studio. He's practiced constitutional and administrative law in Washington, D.C. for 23 years. He's defeated the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, in federal court 6 times, more than any other attorney in America. He formerly served in the Reagan administration's Federal Communications Commission and was a vice president of the Cato Institute. He's the author of 3 books, including his latest, which is this one, The Rise of Tyranny: How Federal Agencies Abuse Power and Pose Risks to Your Life and Liberty. Now, Jonathan, I want you to tell that person watching and the people here in the audience how you beat the FDA. What does that mean? And give us an example of what you did, and then I'm sure that when you beat them, they probably just felt like they were totally having to change the way they do things, yes?
Well, the Food and Drug Administration had this regime in place, which it's still in place, as you'll come to find out. There's a sad ending to this story. The Food and Drug Administration had this regime where they had a massive prior restraint, that is, total censorship on any nutrient disease relationship claim, even if it's true. So, for example, if I say that prune juice is a treatment for chronic constipation, which I don't think anyone in the audience would disagree with that, and I don't think any scientist would disagree with that, that is illegal. If I put that on a prune juice bottle and I sell prune juice, that's illegal because the FDA has an absolute prior restraint even if the statement is true. Now, this raises profound First Amendment issues. In fact, not since the Star Chamber courts in England in the 14th century did you have such a draconian system of prior restraint in place. The First Amendment of the Constitution is designed to eliminate prior restraints, first and foremost